Hi, I'm Larry Lawton, America's biggest jewel thief. Join me as I walk you through my past robberies, how I planned them, executed them, and ultimately got caught. I'm going to show you how we did things in prison, like making a tattoo gun, making wine, making white lightning. It's going to be very educational. These are the untold stories. Hey everybody, here's another edition of the Untold Stories. Before I just get started, I want you to check out our membership program on YouTube and Patreon. You guys, a lot of people asked for that, so I thought I'd give that. Let me jump right into an untold story, and it's about a robbery. And I'm not going to say it went bad, but let's just say we had some hiccups during the robbery, and I'm going to explain the whole situation and what kind of a person I was back then and how I am now, actually. So this was in about the early 90s, and I'm really going strong. I have a whole crew of guys. I have a clubhouse. My clubhouse was a warehouse that I had built. It was in a warehouse like district area, and I had a bar in there. I had it built out. Nobody knew I had it built. I even had an air conditioning unit put on the roof of this. It's all a bunch of storage units, and they were pretty big storage units, but I had mine built out to offices. I had a wall going down the center of it, and then I had 3 offices, and in the part of the office I had a bedroom, if you want to call it that, in the back where there's an office, a pull-out couch and all of that. And then the middle office, I had bookmaking. I had guys on phones, getting bets, taking bets. We were doing drugs, minor drugs and that kind of stuff back then. And in the front was kind of like a reception area. On the other whole half of the store, it was like a garage, one of those storage, big storage units. I had my limousine. I used to keep my limousine, and then I had a bar built at the end of the warehouse, at the back of the warehouse. So I had a bar. A friend of mine just made me laugh. He said, you used to talk about that and how you were going to try to keep it quiet and stuff like that. And I'm not the kind of quiet kind of guy, but anyway, I was running things down, and this is down in South Florida. So I had a whole crew, and a lot of people knew who I was. Nobody knew I was actually the biggest jewel robber at that time. A lot of people knew what I did. They thought I was a bookmaker. They knew I was associated with organized crime. But some of them, I'm sure, thought I was a drug dealer. But nobody really thought and knew what I actually did, which was my main source of income, was robberies. So what I did was, though, I always had different guys wanting to get, come on a robbery, check us out, knew something. They always knew something I was up to. They always wanted to get involved. So I had a core group of guys that were very, very close. And of course, I had my core group of robbing guys. Now, one of the guys has since passed the cancer. The other one you all know, who's my brother, which I'm going to have on one of my shows as well. I'm going to interview him as well. And I had a couple other guys that would get cars, would like watch my house, stuff of that nature. So a lot of young people out there who watch this video, and I am in contact with a lot of these guys to this day. And I'm going to actually interview a lot of these guys as well. And I mean, from Junior to Chris, my neighbor, was a young kid. I just heard from him. Fat Tommy, which you all know now. I mentioned the names only because they said I could. So it was pretty cool. So anyway, here I was going to do a robbery. I was doing robberies a lot at this time. I really got to know what I was doing. And when I say got to know what I was doing, I mean I seriously knew how to case them, knew where I was getting rid of them, knew exactly how quick they would be out of my hands. So I had a crew. So I had one guy, he says he knows kind of what we're doing, and I sit him down, and he wants to get involved in this kind of business. And I used to say to people, listen to me, this kind of business, not many people should get into. First of all, they think they can get into it, and they think they're going to be able to have the brass balls to do it, but they don't. And that's just nature. Some people are made for it, some are not. Fat Tommy was the greatest guy, sweet guy to this day, and he knew he wasn't up for anything like that, but he was a great guy, good with numbers, very organized. I used to do my driving in my limousine, and I ended up meeting him as a neighbor, and we ended up getting very close. So he would cover for me, knew about all the broads I was messing around with, knew about the drugs, where to get them, where the money was in my safe in the house, anything like that. He knew he could, I could trust him. I actually, it's funny, Tommy knew the safe combination to my house, and my wife didn't.
So, I mean, that's how much you trusted someone back in those days. It was just the people you got to hang out with. Well, one of the guys, we were going to do a robbery. Now, the robbery was in a shopping center, shopping mall, like I normally did. I don't mean a mall like you go in. A plaza where you'll see, 7 or 10 stores. Usually it's anchored by like a Winn-Dixie or a Publix supermarket or, Safeway or one of those big grocery stores. And then there's a lot of other little stores in the plazas. It could be, insurance companies. It could be, of course, a jewelry store, and it could be other entities in there. It could be a locksmith. It could be a beverage place. It could be a couple little offices, usually a hairstylist, stuff of that nature. It's in a plaza. So this plaza I was going to do this robbery was perfect. It was actually, I knew the plaza pretty well because it had in the corner, there was a bar that I used to go to once in a blue moon. Not like I was a regular in that bar, but I knew the bar and I knew the location of the place pretty well. This is in South Florida. And I kind of knew the back ways and everything else. So I start casing the place. And I said, this is an easy one. I can pretty much get away with this robbery pretty easy. How am I going to do it? All right, here's the story. So I knew the getaway right back. I was going to hit the store, take all the jewels back to an apartment I had at that time, that I was going to take them, separate the jewels. Either sometimes I used to put them in a Christmas box or something of that nature or some kind of packaging, or not. Sometimes I would just take them right from that robbery. They'd be in the trunk of the car, and I would literally be heading to New York, and they would be out of my hands, like I said, in 24 hours. Well, at this time, I was going to take them back to the place and separate them and do a different way, because you don't want to always travel with everybody either. You don't want to travel with the 3 people you're with. Sometimes you have to. Usually I would travel with one other person, and the other one would go on his way, and we'd meet back, and I'd pay everybody what they were getting. Well, this time we had a young man who wanted to try to be part of the robbery with us. He knew about what we were doing, so I briefed him. I said, hey, we're going to do a robbery, and you want in. You don't have to do a gun. You don't have to come into the place. You don't have to have those kind of brass balls, because trust me, it takes brass balls to actually go into these places, jump a counter, put a gun to somebody's face. It's not like, oh, okay, I could do this. Trust me, you can't do it. And thank God you can't do it. I don't want anybody doing robberies anymore. And as I told you, this is not for anybody, everybody or anybody. It's really for a select few. And please, those select few are going to get caught, as I did. Eventually, everybody gets caught. But anyway, so I always knew if I was going to try a new guy in any robbery, I had to have a contingency plan. And what are you asking? What do you mean by contingency plan? Well, listen, when you're doing a robbery, and of course, I was the main guy. So when I went in, sometimes I went alone, sometimes I went with another person, and we would jump the counter. I would have it set up. Of course, I set myself up. I had nice clothes on. I already cased this place. I knew where everything was. So I knew all of that part of it. Now, when I go in my uniform, and in my uniform, it was usually a sports jacket. It was sometimes glasses. I didn't have a goatee or anything like that. And back then, I actually had hair. So as I said, so now you put pillowcases in your waistband under your shirt. Of course, you're tucked in. You look in the mirror. You make sure you're good. In the back pocket, I had flex cuffs. Then I would keep also the gloves that I would put on immediately when I went, and I would get these gloves, put them on. And of course, after taking the person down, and get down. And when I got them down, first thing I did, close your eyes. I would put the gloves on. Now I'm good. Now, depending, if somebody's coming in with me, they're going to jump, and they're going to do it right when I make my move. They're going to jump and get the other person. Most of my robberies, not most of them, I went in alone first and then brought the other people in. I would nod at the door, and they would walk in, and they would be taking the cleaning the shelves while I'm taking the real stuff in the safe and in the fake spot. On most robberies, jewelry stores have a fake spot where they keep the diamonds. It's either in a false drawer, or it's in a false panel underneath, or it's not in the safe where everybody thinks they always are. They usually have it somewhere else, or they might even have a second safe that nobody knows about. So this place was set up perfect, and my first job with this young guy was to bring him in slow, meaning his job was to wait out front. When I nodded, I'd go to the front door, and it's a glass door, glass out front. I would go to the front door, I'd nod, and he would come around, and he would come to the back and pick us up, because we usually went out the back door. That was always the plan, to get away, to be seen. You don't want to walk out of a jewelry store with a bunch of pillowcases full of diamonds and jewels. People might spot you and something might happen. So I always had a contingency plan, especially with a new person. Not like when it was my regular crew, my one or two guys. Like I said, one guy's dead now, Jimmy, and the other guy's my brother. And he, those guys I trust with my life. And obviously they never told or anything of that nature. Nobody went to prison on my case. My brother ended up going to prison, and that's a whole long story, and I'm going to get into that video at another video. So anyway, here I am. I said, I'm going to try this young guy out, and he's going to be picking us up. I'm going to see what kind of balls you got. Now, you got to remember, before the robbery, you're getting juiced up. You're getting psyched up. You first of all, you're going by a few times. You got to make sure everything that you did beforehand, all the casing you did in that robbery is the same exactly on that day. Many times, I would actually case a store for 2 and 3 weeks at a time. And then when I come back to do the robbery, something was wrong. Something was off. You have to have the brains, and you can't be desperate. You have to call it off. Robbery's off. For whatever reason, if I didn't feel right, something wasn't right, I saw people who weren't normally there. Maybe the mailman coming down the plaza was coming at a different time. I always knew all of that information, but sometimes if something wasn't right, I would make sure I didn't do it. That was just the way I did it. Well, this robbery, everything was right. First, I cased the place. I knew when the people were coming and going. I knew what time of the day. It was perfect for the glass, for the glare coming off of from the sun hitting the glare. Nobody could look in. I knew the place. I knew the time of day, the day of the week it was best to do. Everything was set. But this time, I had kind of always a feeling, whenever you have somebody new, you got to, again, have a contingency plan. So what was my contingency plan? I made sure there was another car in that plaza, just parked there, had the key with me, just in case. What happens? What if? And I call it the what if of a robbery. Sure enough, did the robbery. We go in, get down. I remember, I'll never forget, there were 2 people in this store. So I went in with my brother. We put them down. They're down. Now we're starting to wipe out the store. And when we wipe out that store, the first thing you do is you put your pillowcase. You might have 2 pillowcases. You always carry 2. And you might have 1 full of jewels already, because you're wiping out those shelves. You're wiping out the shelves. You're going to the safe. You're getting everything out of the safe. You go into the back office where they do repairs and stuff. You got sometimes really good stuff there. And I mean, like, the guy's a wholesaler usually, the guys I hit. So what do they have there? They're actually making their new rings. And they got loose stones. They might have a carat and a half, might have a carat and 3/4, and they're making a pendant, or they're making an engagement ring or something nice they're going to be putting in their display case. So they're making it. So it was my opportunity. That's another spot. A lot of people didn't know where other stuff would be in the robbery, in that valuables in that jewelry store. So what happens? We go into the robbery. We do the robbery. I come to the front door and I nod, and I can't see anybody out there. I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm looking. I know what to do, but I'm like, did he come around back? Did I come up to the door and nod first without knowing and not see him go around back? Because that was his cue to go around back. He wouldn't just go around back and wait there, because other people might drive by and never see a car there. And what's this car doing there? And a guy sitting in a car, you would definitely never do that. The back of the place wasn't a place where there was parking for other people. Even the owners didn't park in the back there. Some jewelry stores where people will park, there'll be like the owner's cars or other stores down the plaza, them. But then again, that's another tangible you don't know about, because you don't know when someone else is coming and going. Is it a new employee coming in and they're told, hey, park in the back? Most places aren't like that. There might be a dumpster in the back. Usually that's where they keep their dumpsters and stuff of that nature. So a person would, you'd have to always time, when did that place put out their trash? When did the other place next to it or the other place next to it? When did they put out their trash? So you'd have to know all of these intricacies. Just rob. Nobody goes just a professional robber doesn't just go into a jewelry store and say, hey, this is a robbery, and chance everything. Oh, maybe there's not a cop in the area. Maybe there was the owner doesn't have a gun. Maybe the owner doesn't have a camera on you. Maybe there's somebody in the back of the store that's looking through a two-way mirror. You know, the one-way mirrors where they can look out and you can't look in. You know, it's a mirror and they can look out. No. So you have to always make sure of all those things. This store was all set right and done right. So I'm trying this new guy on this perfect store. So it was perfect. So sure enough, like I says, I go to the window, boom. I don't see anyone go. And now I'm starting to think, I'm kind of like sweating a little bit. Where is anyone? What's going on? Why can't I find this person? What is going on? So what do? I go to the back of the store and I open the door and there's nobody there. Think of this. Now I got I think we had 3 pillowcases full of jewels, and I always stole a clock. Don't ask me why. That was my little craziness. But we all had our bags of jewelry in the back, and the stuff, totally stuffed. And they're big bags, big pillowcases full. So they're in the back, and they're at the door, and there's nobody there. What am I going to do? I had a contingency plan. If I didn't have that contingency plan, you're in trouble. What are you going to do? Call a cab? Doesn't work like that. But I had a car parked there. So what did I do? I get out. I made myself look good, not sweat and do anything. I walk out casual, like I'm just part of the, in and out of a store. And I walk to the car, casual as everything, and I'm looking around. I don't want anything to happen. And I'm thinking now, am I being set up? Is the cops going to be waiting for me? Did this guy freaking go to the cops? What happened? Why? I'm very particular, very cautious of who I hung around with, who I knew, how I knew them, who I knew in their family, everything else. So they knew I wasn't a guy to play with either. So it's not like, oh, let's just give it a shot and hope that, nothing happens. I get to the car, and I had the car. And again, it's a car that's already set. There's a fake plate on it, but it's in the parking lot. And it was down about 4 or 5, stores. So I didn't have to walk right out into the parking lot. Opened the door, walked down the plaza like I'm a regular person. I get in the car over there. I do bring it around, back it right up. I knocked 3 times because that was the code that was me. I knocked 3 times. My brother opens the door. We put everything in the car. My brother is hot. He wants to kill this dude. He's going, what is going on? What? Oh, this guy just freaked on us. Now, as a guy I didn't have to be violent. I was a guy that was very smart and calculating in all of this. So what do? I'm calming him down. Now we have the jewels. We're in the car. We get away. And of course, your adrenaline is, when I say you're sweating, your palms are sweating. Now your gloves are off, of course, because when I went out the store, I took the gloves off. And whenever I did that, anything like that, I didn't just take the gloves off. I put them back in my pocket. So I made sure they wouldn't fall out, drop, or anything like that. And I looked like a normal person coming out with a sports jacket. You can't look like with a mask or anything like that because people are going to recognize that. And you're going to be popped right away. Or they're going to follow you. There's going to be a hero. Something like that's going to happen. That didn't happen. What happened? So I end up getting the jewels. We go, and my brother is hot. When I say hot, he wants to kill this guy. This son of a bitch. He's almost got us killed. Almost got us caught. I'm going to kill him when I see him. What happened? Sure enough, we get back to the apartment. And he's nowhere to be seen at this point. Now, I'm thinking a couple of things. Did he go to the cops? What happened? What spooked him? And that was what I was hoping. Did something spook him that he just freaked out? Now, you got to remember, this is back in 1993. We had cell phones, but nobody had a cell phone like today. It's not like you got an iPhone, you got a, Samsung. Everybody has a phone. No, phones were rare. I had a phone. I had one of those big brick phones. You remember those gray Motorola phones? But not everybody had a phone. So it wasn't like you could call someone and say, hey, come get me, something like that, and they have a cell phone, or you're going to call him and he's going to, hey, where is he at? You know what I mean? No. We go back to the apartment, and it's just him. We take out the jewels. It was a nice score. I remember that. And sure enough, we don't hear from him. Now I have to think, as the leader of this gang, what am I going to do? How is this going to go down? Because I got now a guy that's either possibly snitching, or did he freak? What happened? Why did he just freak? I still consider myself a pretty good judge of character, and I think that's what saved me a lot of ways. And because, remember, I never had a snitch on my case. Nobody ever went to the police and said, hey, it was Larry, and let's do an undercover thing. I did have a snitch on after I got caught, and I'll explain that in a YouTube video as well, and another YouTube video, and another untold story. But this one is about this young person that almost freaked out. So anyway, we go through the process. I have to calm my brother down. I'm not kidding you. He's wanting to kill this guy. I mean, he's so hot. Wait, this motherfucker don't have the, why do you, get... Listen, I used to tell my guys, listen, don't tell me how to run my crew. I don't care who you are. You don't tell me how to run my crew. We've been a successful crew for a long time. So I'm running this crew. Anyway, we get away. I get to New York, do everything. I ended up, actually, before we left, I saw him, and the kid was scared shit. He didn't know what I was going to do. He didn't know if I was going to shoot him, do something, or, beat the fuck out of him. He didn't know what. Nobody knew what was going on. And I calmed the guy down. I actually, after that, nothing. I mean, I ended up using the guy in a different way. And when I say like in a different way, one of the best things I've ever learned in my whole life is everybody has talents. Everybody has talents of some sort or another. You out there might be a great organizer. Another guy might be a great, could put anything together. He could fix something. He could fix a computer. He can fix a blender or something. Another guy might be a really great math guy. He could figure out numbers. I figured out this young guy was unbelievable with numbers. He could be a great bookie. So I ended up using the guy still, and the reason I did a lot of that was to keep him close too. You don't just throw him to the curb and say, you're out of here, get the fuck out of here. And then you get people who are pissed, they had a bad day. They know things now that you did this robbery. And in robberies, the statute of limitation is 5 years. What does that mean? If you do a crime today, if I did a crime today, if nobody gets me, they don't indict me, they don't know who I am, and they don't indict me, in 5 years, I'm scot-free. Literally scot-free. Literally, I could tell them I did that robbery, and they can't do a thing about it. That's called statute of limitations. Every crime has not every crime. Murder has no statute of limitations. Kidnapping doesn't have a statute of limitation. Terrorism has no statute of limitation. Certain things like that, anything against the government, treason or something like that, doesn't have a statute of limitations. But a robbery has a statute of limitations. You drug dealing has a statute of limitations. A lot of times the cops get around that by saying you did another drug deal in between, so it's a continuing crime. In a robbery, it's cut and dry. You do that robbery, 5 years later, you're free of that crime. Nobody's just going to go say, hey, I did that robbery. Nobody's just going to do that either. But that's the law. That's literally the law. And sure enough, I want to keep this person close, and which I did, and everything else. I ended up calming the whole situation down to the point where this guy came, sat down with me, was shaking, and he told me he didn't have the balls to do this. Obviously, I could go off the rails and want to kill this dude or beat the fuck out of him, do something like that. I didn't. Because if there's one talent everybody should have, it's the talent of figuring out what a person's strengths are. Everybody should figure out what another person's strengths are. My strengths are probably organizational skills, communication skills. That's my strength, so I can keep things organized and make sure I ran a good crew, if you want to call it that. I also had balls. I mean, to be a robber, again, I never want people to think I'm bragging about any of this, because I don't want you to become a robber. You know what I believe. You know I want to keep people from making bad choices, not ruining their life, because that's what happened to me. I lost a lot in my life, and it had absolutely nothing to do with money. It had everything to do with my son and my daughter and my wives, everything. That's my payment. That was really what hurt me the most. But you have to figure out what somebody's strength is. This young guy, as much as I wanted another good crew member that I could trust during a robbery, it's harder than anybody thinks to just get another robber. You don't just do that. It's hard. I'm trying to explain how hard it is. Well, you're talking about the criminal world. Now, everybody has this fantasy, oh, we're going to sit around a table. I did that review of GTA, the Grand Theft, and how they get somebody off the street, and this guy Michael's giving them the plan, or Lester's doing this, and they get all these people who don't know anybody, and they just call. That's such bullshit. You better know somebody. Like, I had to know that person. I always really didn't, I wasn't really as worried about him going to the police, because you got to know personal things about people, and it's hard for them to think, oh, let me just go and go to the police on this guy, because you knew him very personally. How people get caught with that is when they get caught doing something else, and they say, hey, listen, I don't want to go to prison, and I know Larry Lawton, and Larry Lawton, is a criminal. And then the cops, are they going to take his word for it? Or they're going to investigate, but they might not have anything at that point. But then if he says, hey, listen, I know he's going to do a robbery, and then you're getting set up. But at this had nothing to do with that. The biggest problem during this whole robbery was keeping my brother from wanting to beat the fuck out of this guy, almost kill this guy, because that's how mad he was, because he couldn't control himself with that kind of calm and understanding of a crew. That's the key in all crime, I think. And, not being educational in crime. And as one of the untold stories, I didn't like to put how to do that, how to get that crew together, because I do get the emails and the messages on that. I don't want that. I don't want people to know how to do that. But it is what it is, these untold stories. So what I want to end on this video is make sure you know who you're hanging around with. Make sure you know who your crew is. Even in regular life, I hope you all know who your friends are. And, I want to end on a person's word. As you all know on this channel, I am all about being my word. If I tell you I'm going to post a video, I'm going to post a video. If I tell you, hey, Larry's going to answer somebody, he's going to do something. I'm a big person on my word. I lived on my word my whole life. My word meant more than any money I ever made. And it will always be like that. It has absolutely nothing to do with anything else, but a person's word should mean something. And I hope yours means something. I'm going to end this now on just understanding another person's strengths and weaknesses. Remember that. So also now, Untold Stories is coming out with we're coming out with a new series. I'm going to be starting to film that this week. The series I'm filming is Prison Cooking with Larry Lawton and a special guest. In fact, my first guest is going to be my brother. I want to bring him to the audience in a cooking show, because he knows what I'm going to be doing with the cooking. He understands the stingers and the razor blades, and we'll tell a few robbery stories, and we might make a two-parter with him, because it's going to be a lot of fun. But I did have commitment. I got commitment from AJ Hawk, who's a linebacker in the NFL, another couple of football players, the cruiserweight champ of the world, some other people I'm going to contact, and who you are out there, and it's from Junior to Chris and some Tommies. Those are the guys you're going to see on my show, Prison Cooking with Larry Lawton and a special guest. So make sure you check out the links below. Make sure you check out our merch, check out our membership programs both on Patreon and right here on YouTube. I also want to start everybody, try to do something good for somebody every day. I do that, whether I driving down the road and I'm on a highway where they take the tolls and you got the Sun Pass in Florida. I sometimes take that down and I will go to the booth and give the guy the money. And I say, hey man, I hope you're having a great day. Thanks for doing what you're doing. I get looks like, is this guy crazy? I want you to do something good, whether it's opening a door for an older person, carrying some package to their car. Do the right thing by people. I think that's the most important thing in the world. I love doing my videos. I'm going to keep coming up with untold stories because I have so many of them. And while I was just doing this, I was thinking about a couple of ones that are pretty crazy that happened with Molotov cocktails and a whole bunch of other stuff. So stay well, everybody. Keep watching us. Please pass the word. We're growing, and I want this thing to keep growing. And I told you, I want you guys to be part of something bigger than me and bigger than this channel. And it's called helping people with prison reform and criminal justice reform. Have a great day, everybody.